Welcome back, everybody, to the Fantasy Hockey Hacks podcast, your season-long source for fantasy hockey news, analysis, and fun. Because, Bruce, on this podcast, we don't take ourselves too seriously.
Especially me.
Yeah, I think that goes for everybody, all parties involved. Tonight's going to be a fun episode 181. We're going to go through 2024, 2025 breakout candidates. Some of these players we've talked about in the past. Some of them are new. Some should be well known. And we'll run through this and have some fun. So looking forward to it. Hopefully everybody enjoyed the last episode, our 2024-2025 NHL schedule breakdown. There was also some stuff from some of the other fantasy guys I've been ripping through, Bruce, and lots of good content out there. So I think it's a topic worth talking about.
Oh, definitely. I've been looking through my podcast feed. I'm like, I don't have enough time to listen to all this stuff.
No, we are rapidly approaching the new season. Yahoo has opened up now, so everybody is starting to mock draft and have some fun with that, and renewing leagues and all that kind of good stuff. So we're at that point in the year.
I saw that. I saw some of them even posted them to YouTube. I'm like, no, you want to keep my next hour and a half. I'm not going to watch that yet. Not yet. Too soon.
Yeah, we should do some mock drafts at some point, but it hasn't really been part of our content mix here over at FHH, but that's okay.
No.
And the thing is too, with these mock drafts, like, it's so league dependent. What are your setup? What's your league settings? And then it's at a point where all the numbers are so funny. I think Nate over at Apples and Ginos posted a screenshot of his, and he said, drafting this time of year on Yahoo is just a lot of fun because you just load up your roster. It looks ridiculous.
Oh, the ADPs are probably just dumb at this point.
What's a lot of people found to be fun this week, Bruce, that I did not find particularly fun?
What's that?
Offer sheets to Dylan Holloway and Philip Brogerg. I said it on social media. I'm not usually the guy that goes on profanity-laced tirades on Twitter.
I saw that. I'm like, oh boy.
I'm going to reiterate it here. St. Louis, fuck you. Okay, that is basically my thoughts summed up, and I don't like to throw the F-bomb out there a whole lot, but I am so frustrated. When I read, I was trying to work, Bruce. I was really trying to get some work done, and that just threw me off for the whole morning. I just saw red as soon as I read it. And I actually got even more upset after I listened to Elliot Friedman's 32 Thoughts podcast.
I listened to that today.
Did you? Okay, so
yeah.
For everyone that listened to it, this is going to be a repeat, but for those of you that did not, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bruce, the numbers basically, Philip Brogerg was asking for $1.8 million for 2 seasons. And Dylan Holloway, I believe, was asking for 1.2 on a 1-year deal because he has arbitration rights next year.
Yeah.
So all total, those two players, for an Edmonton Oilers team in the midst of their championship window, would have had $3 million on the cap with those two players. And those are players you need. You need affordable players that you've drafted and developed and that can play in the top 6 or the top 9, the top 4 on defense. And I mean, Ryan Black, our buddy Ryan, who does fantasy or dynasty content for us here, said that Philip Brogerg had played like a top 2 defenseman on the biggest stage in these past Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah, he played really well in the playoffs when they put him in. I can understand from the player standpoint why they would sign that because, well, in St. Louis, there is not a whole lot going on there, so they are going to get all kinds of opportunity to play. And Broberg wasn't happy with the way things were going at Edmonton. Holloway, after seeing this summer, probably wasn't too very happy either to find out he's getting pushed down the depth chart again. So I can definitely understand from the player standpoint why they would sign that, because from a team standpoint for the Oilers, how they could allow this to happen is another. Just the summer that Jackson was having was really, really nice until this happened. And now it's going to be really interesting to see what the Oilers actually do here with this.
So, okay, before I have another question for you, but before we get to that, Bruce, I'm just going to say, I do understand this, like, objectively. If you're the player, excuse me, you're Philip Broberg, You've just been offered 250% more than what you were requesting from the team. So
absolutely.
yeah, I don't blame a guy for signing that contract, but I find it so frustrating because you've got Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and maybe even Evan Bouchard all talking about taking a bit of a discount to keep the team together, to potentially bring in more talent, more depth. And then you've got two young guys who really, for all intents and purposes, Bruce, have not proven a whole lot at the NHL level. Like, very limited sample size. Both had good playoffs. But before that, they were in the AHL, right? And so now the whole appeal of a guy like Philip Broberg was that he could have signed for less than $2 million and played as a top four defenseman for this season, potentially for next season.
Yeah.
Now you're in a difficult situation because you can't sign Philip Broberg at $4.6 million, and he's not even going to play on the left side. He's going to play on his offside, which he doesn't want to do.
No, which, from what I understand, in St. Louis, he will play on the left side.
Well, with Torrey Krug potentially being out for the entirety of the season, right? Maybe his career's done. We don't know, but I get it. Philip Broberg, that's the window looks good, but as a player too, do you not want to win championships? Like, if I'm 21 years old, I've got all the time in the world to sign big deals.
Yeah, excuse me. I think more it's the player. At least for Broberg, we know he wasn't happy because he did request a trade earlier in the year, so we knew he wasn't happy. So for him being able to play in the playoffs and play as well as he did, just shows what he already knew about himself. And for the Oilers not signing him before the end of the season, that should have been on them, because you could kind of see this coming, right? At some point, you're going to see something was going to have to give somewhere, right?
Well, I wanted to clarify that too, Bruce. Sorry to cut you off, but Elliot Friedman did say that there was a point where they tried to have a conversation with Broberg about re-signing, but the understanding was that he didn't want to sign. He wanted to wait until the end of the year and see how things played out, right? So I don't know.
Moved by him,
right? And I think between that and the trade request, I don't think there was any chance Broberg was signing before the summer anyway.
Yeah.
Now,
and that makes that makes sense.
And I think for a guy like Dylan Holloway, they could have tried to sign him earlier for sure. I think there was some chance, if they and Elliot talked about in his podcast, was that if you approach those players when they're most vulnerable, they're in the minors, their confidence is low, that's a good time to have those conversations about their long-term vision for the player. And I don't think the Oilers approached that really well. But you know what? He had opportunities. He played with Draisaitl in the playoffs. I just don't understand. For Dylan Holloway, you're going to go from playing, whether it's top 9 or top 6 minutes in Edmonton, to now you're going to play with who in St. Louis?
Yeah, it's who. But the other case maybe is they may have said, "Look, you are going to play in the top 6 in St. Louis
because they have nobody else to play there."
Yeah, granted, like Bushnevich and Kyrou and Thomas, I think
they've got some players, but it's
but they probably said, "Look, you come here, we're going to put you in the top 6. You are going to get every chance to play in the top 6 here in St. Louis." Where we know in Edmonton, unless there's injuries, he isn't getting out of the third line anytime soon.
Yeah, but I don't know. Do you want to win a championship, or do you want to get more minutes in St. Louis and do nothing? Like I'm really frustrated with the whole situation. But anyway, my question to you that I was thinking of earlier, you're the Edmonton Oilers, you're Stan Bowman, you've just sat in the GM chair. What's your take on this? Are you letting both guys walk? Are you letting one guy walk? Are you trying to retain both? What's your approach here?
Oh, as I said in our group chat, my knee-jerk reaction is later. Let them both go. Take it as an L and move on. I understand people wanting to sign. Holloway's got a great package there with speed. He showed in the playoffs how well, and Broberg did too. Without making a total mess of the defense, I can't see them keeping Broberg. I just can't. You got Bouchard that's due next year, and that is going to be a huge number on Bouchard. Mm-hmm. Nurse's contract is hanging like a lead weight over all of this.
Yeah.
I know people are talking about getting rid of CC and stuff like that, but I just, I can't see them getting rid of CC. I really can't. And really, you're going to sign Broberg and he's going to play on the off wing. Like, if they get rid of CC, does that open a spot for him on? No, CC's right side, is he not?
He is. He normally plays with Nurse, but that pairing hasn't worked at all. And in the playoffs, it was Kulak and CC on the third pairing.
Yeah. So is Broberg better than CC? Do you play CC this because CC's got this is his last year, right? On his deal?
Yeah.
To be honest, I'd let him. For me, I just let them both go. Take your lumps, and they don't want to be here. They want to sign the deals for money. Bye. I will find some players because we've had players that want to come and they want to come and play.
Yeah. Yeah.
Find a couple of players that want to come and play and slot them in there and go. Like the entire team through the season, Brogerg hardly played. Holloway played, but like you said, he was all over the lineup. But you look at who you've added. So if you're just going to subtract Holloway out of there, you would think between Arvidsson and Skinner, they'd be able to cover that. Do they have Holloway's speed? No, they don't. Mm-hmm. But you look at Savoy they got here from Buffalo, or you go out and take a look at who's available out there as free agents still, or even Jackson's been really good with trades here as of late, trying to get players via trade. I just take the L and move on.
It's funny because hearing you kind of go through that and me thinking about some of the moves that Jackson made, like to bring in, they moved up to actually draft in the first round this year, right? With the 32nd overall pick, or whatever it was. Yeah. And that player, I can't remember his name right now, but just trying to fill the pipeline, right? So maybe Jackson kind of went, this is a real possibility that we get offer sheet on these two players and we have nothing in the pipeline. Yeah. And so bringing in that and then the Savoy trade, like those are starting to make a little more sense, but it's just really, really frustrating. And you talked about it earlier. You and I were just texting back and forth. You draft Bourgault. Well, you could have had Wyatt Johnson, right? So, like, how big of a difference did that have made right now? We go all the way back to 2016.
That'd be like if you look at that. So if the Oilers take Johnson and he follows his progression that he has, like he's in Dallas, holy crap, man! Like that's huge. Like that's huge, right? That's when you look at that. Like I said, I was flipping them today, and I just looked at that, and I almost wanted to start crying. Like that's a huge whiff, like a huge one.
Massive. And what if, going back to the Puljujärvi draft, what if they had taken Kachuk or Sergachev at fourth overall?
Keller.
Or so many of those just massive misses by the Edmonton Oilers. Yeah. What if they'd taken, God, I can't remember his name right now. It wasn't Sebastian Cossa, but the other goaltender was available, and they took Xavier Bourgault, who...
I can't remember his name either now.
Wallstead.
That's it. Yeah.
Anyway, so just like things like that, their draft history has really hurt them the past few years. But that's why it's so important that you need to maintain some of these prospects in your pipeline. And it's going to really hurt to lose these two guys. And so I understand what Ryan was talking about and some other people I've seen online, that the value isn't that great on either of these picks, right? Like you're getting second and third round picks. That doesn't help you at all right now. And
no.
So what do you do? I mean, do you try and get accurate value a year from now? Do you take, do you just overpay these guys for 1 year and then trade them next summer?
The only downside to that is if you do bring them back, and let's say Broberg starts the year great, but then half the year he hits a wall, right? And he drops off. There is no one in air is going to take Broberg off of you if he falls off by the end of the season. Sure, he played, 12 playoff games? That's great, right? That's like the first 12 games of the season. Everyone's chugging along nicely. Can he play a full season? Can he play big minutes? We don't know that. That is an X factor. And for paying a kid $5 million for that unknown, like I know everyone beats the crap out of CC and stuff like that, but you know what? Maybe Nurse isn't the right defenseman for him. Maybe they can juggle that a little bit here. Whatever with Stetcher or however they can do that, or there's a defenseman Jones or whatever they brought in. They can flip some guys around and stuff, or I don't know, but that's a huge risk because if he flops, your defense, that's a huge hole in your defense all of a sudden. And you got another boat anchor contract in your in your land, and we already have enough of those in Oiler land. We don't need any more of them.
Well, we've got some dead cap space for sure. And I look at Broberg's numbers right now. He's got a grand total of 13 points and 2 goals in 81 games played.
Yeah.
Like, these aren't massive numbers. And so I understand the reaction to just say, see you later, and use that cap space somewhere else. But it's just to lose that asset for a second round
pick. It sucks. It absolutely sucks to get basically a second round pick, right? And he was a top 10 pick, if I remember correctly. Both were were Holloway both top 10s?
Broberg was an 8th overall pick, and Holloway was...
he was farther down.
He was a little farther down, but I'll pull it up. 14th overall. These are two first-round guys.
Yeah, so that absolutely sucks, right? But the Oilers are trying to win. So if you want to try and win, do you really want to reshuffle what basically has been a winning team for a defenseman that barely played last season except for the last 12 games of the playoffs, and a player that was buried basically for the good chunk of the season on the third and fourth line, where you can probably bring up Matthew, was it Lavoie? They talked about the Oilers bringing him up last year to play in the third or fourth line. I can't remember his name. Not Savoy, not the one they just got from Buffalo, but the other.
Yeah.
Who could probably fill in for Holloway's spot on the third line quite nicely. And he's relatively cheap, and he's young too. Like on the defenseman side, there is no young guy. All of our defensemen, Samorukov he got traded to St. Louis and dropped off the map there, and it's
tough, Bruce. I get what you're saying, and I don't love.
I applaud the people that are trying to make all these. I saw a couple of them on Twitter or X there, where you trade this, you move this guy around, you do this and this and this. I said, I'm looking at it. Okay, you brought them back, but you've just destroyed what little depth you actually just had that you signed. You just destroyed it all. Trying to keep these two guys, is that worth it? Yeah, the Oilers are considered now one of the older teams, but like, you're trying to win now. Are we trying to win, or are we trying to develop players? So I kind of take the Tampa Bay thing on it. Okay, you know what? Yeah, this isn't going to work out. Take the L and move on and find maybe an older veteran that's fallen out of favor somewhere that he wants to give away that could be a decent fit. Slot him in for a year and punt it till next summer and see what happens next summer. You never know. Maybe you can do what Utah did, and you can go get someone like Sergachev or you can move Nurse and bring someone else in that's...
Yeah.
But I just think you're going to do too much damage to the roster by trying to keep both players.
I think that is the way I'd take it, Bruce, is you're going to try and just keep one of these guys.
Yeah.
And for me, it's probably Dylan Holloway, because the cap hit is palatable. I've been saying this the last week to anyone who listened to me. The appeal to Broberg is, yes, he did have a good playoff, but the appeal there was that you could get him for sub $2 million, potentially for 2 seasons. At $4.6 million, he's no longer an appealing option on your defense. You can't have him and Nurse playing together for $13 million. That doesn't work.
Yeah. No, it just doesn't. And yes, he played well in playoffs, and that's fine. Like, that's a great time he dropped in there. He handled himself really, really well, but it's only 12 games. To get to that point next season, you've got to play over 100 games to get to those games where he played. He was fresh. He was willing, dropped in there. He basically was playing with house money. If he screwed up, who cares? If he played well, who knows what's going to happen in the summer, right? He had nothing coming into this year. If he's playing for the Oilers, there's going to be pressure. If he ended up, let's say they do keep him, he ends up playing in the top 4, there's an anvil on his back, because now he's going to be expected to do stuff in the top 4.
Mm-hmm.
And he really hasn't shown that he can do that yet. But St. Louis is willing to give him almost $5 million to bet that he can. Because that's the thing out there right now is, you have a decent half season or a decent season, teams are willing to throw out big money for long term at these guys. And I am not convinced Broberg is worth that. So for that, I am willing, and even Holloway for that point, for where Oilers are going to slot him in the lineup, there is no easy path for him to the top 6 unless some serious injuries happen. And you can find someone else to slot him in. You can find someone else to slot in on the bottom 2 lines for less than what you're going to pay Holloway.
This is where it gets really, for me, like, why did we sign Corey Perry? I know, again, it wasn't a massive signing, but
yeah,
that's money you could have used. Like, did we really need to sign Corey Perry? What did he do for us last year?
He didn't do much, right? It wasn't.
Yeah. So, you know what? We've beat this horse enough. We probably should move on.
We've beat it for 20 minutes. We could almost make it its own podcast and just start over again.
Yeah. This has gone off the rails really quick. I'm super frustrated, but you open up a can of worms, my friend. So,
yes.
The one thing, and just okay. Last thing about Dylan Holloway is just that he was one of my breakout candidates when I was on the Apples and Genos podcast weeks ago. I talked with Dylan Holloway as a potential breakout candidate. And that was, I think, I had the notes done before they had signed Jeff Skinner and Victor Arvidsson. And then right before I went on that podcast, that's when those signings were made. And so we still talked about him. And I said to Blake, like, he's maybe not a breakout candidate with those guys on the depth chart now. But if he does, in fact, go to St. Louis, this is a kid that he could have a really good year. And
absolutely.
What I liked about him, just looking through my notes here, 1.06 goals per 60 during the playoffs, 5-on-5. He was tied with Alexander Barkov and ahead of players like Jake Gensel, Jonathan Marchessault, Sebastian Aho, Brock Besser, and even David Pasternak. 1.48 points per 60 put Holloway just outside the top 100 among all skaters in the playoffs. At all strengths, he was 5th on the team with 5.84 individual scoring chances for per 60 and 2nd on the team at 3.14 individual high danger chances for per 60 behind only Connor McDavid. He, like, in terms of bash formats, penalties and hits to be had there as well, I think he was at like 2.5 hits per game during the playoffs.
Nice. Yeah.
Might have been even more than that here. I'm just going to pull that up really quick. 2.39 hits per game last season in Edmonton in just 38 games played. 91 hits in 38 games. So lots to like about Dylan Holloway, regardless of where he plays for next season, particularly if he gets a better role somewhere like St. Louis. So anyway, so that's one guy. Well, he was in our honorable mentions, but since we're on the topic, I just thought I'd mention that really quickly. And so let's roll through this, Bruce. We got 10 players or so to talk about. We'll try and rip through them a little quickly, just given that we spent almost 25 minutes talking about the offer sheets in Edmonton. But
oops.
Yeah, oops. All right, so I guess breakouts. We could define breakouts, Bruce. I guess. How would you look at a breakout? What's the measuring stick for you?
Yikes! I don't know if I really have a technical definition. I think Dauber puts it at 200 games or something to that.
Yeah, that's their breakout threshold. We'll talk about that throughout the show. I mean, that's kind of that's for me one of the factors I look at, which players are around that at forward, right? If they're at 200 games, that's kind of an indication they may be reaching that point. But I mean, things like deployment play into that, line mates, all that kind of stuff.
And that's kind of how I look. I never really looked at games played. It's how they're being deployed, where they're being deployed, what kind of opportunities are they getting, and go for. I've never really taken a technical look at it from that standpoint. Like for fancy stat wise, it's kind of like, okay, where's this kid going to play this year? Is he going to play on the top 2 lines? Is he going to get power play one time? Is he going to get 18 to 20 minutes a night? What's going to happen with these guys, right? And that's kind of how I defined it.
So Bruce,
I never really looked at games played, because you look at the first guy coming up on our list here. He hasn't even played a full season, and I
was just gonna say that's a great segue into this player specifically, because he only played 24 games last year.
Yeah. I took a look here. So he got called up on February 20th, and then he played the last 24 games for Dallas, and then he played all 19 playoff games on top of that. So they couldn't even take him out of the lineup after they brought him up.
Yeah,
that's how well he played.
Again, going back, like, I don't want to draft players based on line mates, because that can change. But a player like Logan Stankoven, to your point, came in, played in the top 6 with Wyatt Johnston and Jamie Benn, and in the regular season and in the playoffs, and they played really well as a line, right?
Really well. And too, when they called Stankoven up, he was tied for the points lead in the AHL.
Yes.
And I think he was tied for the lead in goals too, I think, when they called him up.
Yeah, 57 points, 24 goals in 47 games played in the AHL last year.
Yeah. And it's not like his production dropped off a cliff once he got to the NHL either. He put up 14 points over those 24 games. For basically a kid that hasn't played an NHL game up until this point, that's pretty damn good.
Hey, and then he short guy too, Bruce. 5'8", 5'8" short guy did just fine, and 48-point pace is what it was.
Yeah, and then he continued into the playoffs to boot. Yet it didn't even drop off in the playoffs. He continued to produce in the playoffs.
Well, even by the eye test, Bruce. Like you and I both being Oilers fans, we watched the Dallas Stars, and
Stankoven was everywhere.
All over
him and Johnson were everywhere. It was I think I've said this a number of times off the air and on the podcast. Dallas scares me. That team scares me because you look at, again, going through the draft thing, slight tangent here, in how they got Ottinger and Robertson in the first round and second round, and look at where those two guys are now for Dallas. You look at where they got Wyatt Johnson. You look where they got Stankoven. They got Maverick Bork coming, who's another highly touted prospect.
Yep.
You look at the defense with Heiskanen and Harley, who they got. You got Ottinger, and it's like this team's going to be scary for a while. It's going to be very scary for a while because they're hitting aces with all of their prospects. Like they traded Ty Dellandrea away, and he was another first round pick of theirs.
Yeah, they've done a much better job of drafting and developing players than a lot of teams, right? So,
absolutely.
No, we didn't expect
tangent
them.
there, but
no, that's fine. I mean, but we didn't expect Edmonton to get past them in the Western Conference Final, and so.
No, I didn't. I was surprised they got past Dallas.
Yeah. Just back to Stankoven really quickly. So I am going to mention that power play time on ice is going to be difficult for him to come by. He's going to be on power play too, and we may see his true breakout happen in a season or two when he does get that full-time power play one role. But I wanted to mention too, he produces just fine at even strength. He produced at a similar goals per 60 rate, 0.93, to Jason Robertson, who was at 0.94, and Matt Duchene, who was at 0.98 last season. So again, smaller sample size, but based on the games played, he's been very, very close to some of the top end players in Dallas already. So,
although
keeping in mind.
He could force his way onto power play one because Dallas's projected power play one now is Ben, Hintz, Robertson, Johnson, and Heiskanen. If Stankoven plays well enough, he could punt Ben out of there.
He could, but I still think there's maybe Matt Duchene still ahead of him on the power play.
Yeah,
potentially.
Yeah.
I just
Sagan, Marchment. They've got so many options.
He has to really, really prove that he's the better guy on that first power play unit before he gets there. So, but a guy like Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin both could be gone in a couple years' time. I don't know what their contracts look like, but once their contracts are up, they may not be back. Right? Matt Duchene's on a 1-year deal, I think, too. So,
yeah, they are positioned so well. Like I said, scary, very, very scary.
All right, Bruce, enough Dallas love. Knock it off. Last thing on Stankoven here before we move on. We've gone through some projections. What we came out for him is 23 goals, 59 points, 9 power play points, 196 shots on goal, 15 penalty minutes, 75 hits, and 41 blocks.
That's nice. I like that.
That's not a bad projection for a player that you're probably going to get a little deeper in redraft leagues. Yeah,
and the potential is there for him to do more if he can.
All right. Let's move on to Shane Pinto here, Bruce. I think this was actually one of your suggestions, so maybe you want to kick it off here.
Yeah, so when I did Pinto here, so he got after he was done his suspension there for his gambling, his buddy's gambling issue.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so he played career best 54-point pace in the last 41 games. Career highs on time on ice, just over 18 minutes. Power play time on ice is just shy of 2.5. His shots on goal per 60 aren't too bad, 8.9. He was actually second on the roster at even strength shot generation. Say that fast 3 times.
Good luck.
7.64 per 60. Individual scoring chances, this is 9.45. And individual high danger chances are 5.15 per 60. So underlying stuff looks good. One thing when I was typing this, I was looking all this up, and then as I was sitting here today typing up some extra notes, I'm like, what happens if Josh Norris comes back?
I still think Shane Pinto could play above him, and
Because I don't think they're going to push Norris. They're going to go easy with Norris. He's had 2 major shoulder surgeries now in 3 years, so I think Pinto is gonna hold that second line center spot, especially if he can keep playing like this.
Yeah, well, Norris is made of glass, basically. So
Yeah.
maybe don't give him a top 6 role right away. And looking at those numbers, Bruce, to be second on that roster in individual scoring chances, high danger chances, and shot generation, those are all really important things to look at. Yeah. And he shot a career low 8.2% last year.
So it's gonna improve, right? It's got to improve.
Yeah, and Bruce, that 200 game breakout threshold we like to talk about, he's going to hit that this year too. So
very nice.
I think Shane Pinto is a guy to keep an eye on for sure.
And look at his projected line mates, Batherson and Perron. It's a couple of nice wingers there to play with. You've got Batherson, who's young. Perron is a veteran that's seen lots, and he's put up tons of points as he's traveled through the NHL. It's a couple of great guys to have on your wing.
And you know what, Bruce?
That's why he's in here. I think he's going to have a good season.
I agree. And I think the other thing to consider is that if Josh Norris does get thrust into a second line center role, you've got Ridley Greig and Michael Amadio as line mates on the third line.
That's not too shabby either. Those 2 guys can play.
Right. And Shane Pinto's still doing those things at an individual level. They're going to make him successful, and he's going to be able to take advantage of some weaker matchups. So Shane Pinto, either way you cut it, and 2, probably just, expect that Josh Norris is going to spend some time on the shelf this season, one way or the other. I like
That's if he starts the season.
Yeah. Yeah. So I like Shane Pinto. Just someone to put on your watch list if you don't want to draft him right away.
Be some of those guys, like he's gonna be a later in the draft. He's not gonna go high and he's gonna be a late round guy.
Yeah, I don't know what his ADP is at right now. I haven't even opened up Yahoo mock drafts and Fantrax mock draft
let's
stuff.
Take a quick look here. Yahoo.
Okay, so Bruce, you pull that up. I'm going to run through Pinto's projections here really quick that we came up with. So 25 goals, 62 points, 12 power play points, 223 shots on goal, 24 penalty minutes, 77 hits, and 52 blocks. So some pretty good multi-category coverage from Shane Pinto. Again, power play points are going to be at a premium, but that's to be expected.
So far, it's blank. There is nothing yet.
All right, so we'll move on.
We're a little. Let's see here. This is way too early rankings. Let's see how this. Oh, this only goes to the top 12. Yeah, and Pinto's not going to be in the top 12.
No. That's okay, Bruce. You know what? In the interest of time, we'll move on to the next guy here. Juraj Slavkovsky for the Montreal Canadiens, left wing, right wing eligible. I think, is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
He's playing on that top line with Suzuki and Cole Caulfield and on power play 1. And from a fantasy perspective, there is a lot to like about this player, particularly in bash formats. Former first overall pick, he averaged just shy of 2 hits per contest last season. In terms of deployment, I'm not sure if you could ask for better deployment, honestly. When you look at the second half of last year, he averaged 19-16 time on ice, 322 power play time on ice. That's almost a 75% power play share. And he played at a 29-goal, 66-point pace through 46 contests. Bruce, correct me if I'm wrong. I think we're going to see similar deployment for the rest of the upcoming season. And the only concern at this point is the shot rate, which finished last year at a pedestrian 6.2 shots on goals per 60. But thoughts on Slavkovsky? He's going to feed
Cole Caulfield. He's just going to pass the Caulfield and let him score. That's all he's going to do.
That'll be just fine too. Nothing wrong with that.
And I tried looking up. He had a nice lengthy scoring streak there in the second half of the season last year, and I couldn't find the numbers of how many games it was, but it was pretty good length of games there where he had a point streak where his goals and assists and stuff like that. So, yeah, he's got, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, he's going to get the deployment. He's going to get the opportunity. He's got some great line mates. He's going to put up some points.
And you're going to get this guy at a later point in redraft leagues. In Dynasty and keeper leagues,
he's already gone.
He's
at keeper leagues, depending on Dynasty, he's already gone. You're not getting him in Dynasty. In keeper leagues, depends on how many keepers you get. He could still be there, but in Dynasty leagues, if he's still available, go get him. But I'm pretty sure he's not.
No, 95% owned as
Fantrax would say. Yeah, there's only 5%, and I'm guessing those aren't Dynasty leagues. Those 5%.
But I was actually surprised the category coverage from this guy: 55 penalty minutes, 151 hits.
It's nice.
That's some good category coverage for sure.
That's almost not quite 2 hits a game.
So our projection for him, Bruce, is 26 goals, 68 points, 18 power play points, 184 shots on goal, 71 penalty minutes, 157 hits, and 76 blocks.
I like it.
That's pretty good category coverage for a guy that you're probably going to get in the mid-rounds, potentially later.
Yeah. I don't think we have any Montreal Canadiens fans in our league, so we don't have to worry about them going too early.
Not at all, Bruce. In the couple leagues we play in together, I think you should be able to find him somewhere. Maybe off the waiver wire later in the season, too.
Possibly.
All right, the next guy we got here is Quinton Byfield. This is another player that I talked with Blake about when I was on his show. I know Blake's really high on Quinton Byfield for the upcoming season. Left wing, right wing eligible for the Kings. 98% rostered in Fantrax, so he's going to be really difficult to get in those dynasty formats. But in redraft leagues, 39% rostered in Yahoo. This is where it gets interesting, Bruce, is he played with Kopitar and Kempe last year through the playoffs as a winger. Yeah. Obviously, they want to move him to center at some point because he's the succession plan for the Kings once Kopitar retires. And so there's talk now that he's going to actually take a center position starting as soon as this season, and that would see him playing on a line with Kevin Fiala and Trevor Moore. Not terrible line mates by any stretch. I mean, Kevin Fiala is fantastic. Trevor Moore's shown at times he can be a really effective player too. But for his fantasy value, I personally would much rather see him playing on a wing with Kopitar and Kempe. Oh,
absolutely. They're the two top producers for that team, so that would make total sense.
Well, and
you think they'll push Jeannot down to line 3, or would they have Byfield on third line just to get his feet wet and then move him up?
I don't think they want to, for a player like Byfield, he's not really meant to play that third line role where he's taking on tough defensive matchups, right? I think you still give that to
Jeannot.
Jeannot, yeah, and that's what he's there for. That's what he was supposed. He was never really intended to be a second line center. They just didn't have, and Dubois. That's why he was
second line center. Right? That was supposed to,
yeah. Dubois was supposed to be that guy.
To be the answer, right?
And that didn't work. And actually, to Jeannot's credit, he played really well as a second line center for the Kings when he was asked.
Yes.
So, but I think it's time for Byfield to kind of take that step forward and see what happens. But center's a really tough position to play, right? Even in beer league, center's a lot harder than the wing is. So it's for Byfield to do it.
I only played it once in ball hockey. They said, we're going to put you at center. And I went, you really want me to take face-offs and play center? He goes, yeah, we want to play center. It lasted 2 shifts.
Yeah.
2 shifts. I was that bad.
Thanks, guys.
Because, it is a lot tougher than playing wing. A lot tougher than playing wing.
Yeah, so I have concerns that way. But, I mean, there's no concerns with his advanced metrics. He is approaching the 200-game breakout threshold. Had a pretty good season last year, all things considered. So our projection for him, 24 goals, 64 points, 17 power play points, 192 shots on goal, 53 penalty minutes, 78 hits, and 31 blocks.
No, we'll see how if they keep him on the wing, that's definitely attainable. If they move him to center, I don't know if he'll get to 60 points because center is tough, but then you never know. He could have some good chemistry with Moore and Fiala, and all of a sudden he could blow that out of the water too.
Well, he's a big body, so if he can help cycle the puck down low and get it to guys like Kevin Fiala's got a wicked shot. So if you can get the puck to him, you're going to pile up a bunch of assists. Byfield had 55 points last year in 80 games. So we're maybe going out on a bit of a limb here to say 64 points, but it's not a massive improvement from what we saw last year. It's that line mate and deployment thing that I have some concerns about. But all right,
and again, he's going to be a later round guy too. So
for sure. So that's where there's going to be some value to be had on Quinton Byfield.
Yeah.
All right.
This next guy's going to be fun.
Yeah. So last player, and Bruce, I mean, you run through this, I think, but it's probably again because of the line mates that we're really interested in Tommy Novak.
Yeah, and definitely. Like he's projected to line up with Stamkos and Marchessault on the second line for Nashville. And like, really, you couldn't ask for two better wingers at this point. Like you've got two very accomplished scorers there in Marchessault and Stamkos. So there's going to be a lot of great puck movement. There's going to be a lot of points from these three guys, and it's And Novak is a first round pick himself, so he's no slouch at all.
No,
but he could definitely see a nice. What do we got him for? We got him for a nice chunk of points here too for this year. He's not going to see the top power play. There's just too much talent in front of him right now to get.
And the shot rate's not great with him. He topped out at 7.5 shots on goal per 62 seasons ago. He's an efficient shooter, like 15.9% and 18.3% the past 2 years, but he doesn't shoot the puck a whole lot, and that's probably fine, Bruce, because he's just going to pass the puck over to Stamkos and Marchessault.
Because they're both 40 goal scorers, are they not? Marchessault hit 40 this year last year, did he not?
Correct.
Like you got two 40 goal scorers on your wings. You don't need to shoot the puck, just pass.
That's right. He's going to pile up.
If you want to screw him up every now and then and shoot, fine. But really, all you got to do is pass.
No,
like,
he'll be a decoy for the most part. He'll just be passing the puck over.
Yeah, rack up those assists.
Now, saying that, Bruce, he did produce at a 21 goal pace last year and a 27 goal pace in 2022-2023. So he's an efficient shooter, doesn't shoot a lot, but he's shown that he can score some goals despite not shooting the puck a ton. And that is why our projection reflects 26 goals and 68 points. 16 power play points, maybe a bit generous, given that there is a lot of players on the depth chart ahead of him. 160 shots on goal, 12 PIMS, 11 hits, and 39 blocks. So
11 hits? Yikes.
He doesn't hit a lot, no. He might go for the Lady Bing too at 12 penalty minutes.
Yeah, no kidding. But yeah, it's 20 goal, 25 goal scorers. That's nothing to sneeze at. Teams will give appendages to get people like that on their team. So that's nothing to sneeze at.
He's just got to play a full season. Like all of our projections are based on a full 82 game schedule. But just so you know, Bruce, he had 5 hits last year in 71 games. 9 hits in 51 games the year before, and 4 hits in 27 games the year prior to that. So he's not a big banger.
In my ball hockey game, and it wasn't even a contact league.
Yeah, eight penalty minutes the last 2 seasons as well. So he's just not going to cover a ton of categories for you. But there's lots of other things to like. I think his time on ice is going to take a big jump from the 14 and a half minutes he's played roughly the last 2 years as well.
Yeah, with his 2 line mates, it's definitely going to go up.
All right, and then a couple more honorable mentions here. So JJ Peterka, who Bruce, we've talked about a lot over the past
love JJ
season or two. He had a really good year last year. Dylan Guenther, I think, is going to have if not a breakout season, a much better season. Owen Tippett, how high is the ceiling for that guy remains to be seen. And then Dylan Holloway,
they got to let him play.
Yeah,
got to let Tippett play.
He's got to play. He's shown he can play big minutes. His shot rate is fantastic. That's a player you want on the ice.
Absolutely.
All right, Bruce. I know you're a big fan of this next guy. You better kick this off for us. We're moving into defensemen now. Yeah.
So the first defenseman on the list, I kind of hopped on this one early and often last year. You probably heard me talk about him lots. So Brock Faber for the Minnesota Wild. So his Fantrax number is at 97%. So this, excuse me, basically tells you that I'm not the only one that's jumping all over this. Yahoo percentage is 51%, which is nothing to sneeze at either. So people there are seeing that, hey, this kid's got something. And obviously Minnesota did. They signed him to a 8-year, $64 million contract after seeing him play for 1 season. But literally he came up, jumped in, and basically was arguably their best defenseman for the entire year.
Yeah.
He brought some life back to a power play that was pretty much an unmitigated disaster for the most part the past 2 seasons. And like I think we talk about, sorry, I'm kind of totally going off script here.
No, you just do your thing, man.
So one thing that we got in the notes here is that based on what he did with the power play last year, there could be another incremental improvement this year, which would be fantastic, especially for the Wild, because as I had mentioned previously, the power play has not really been all that great. Having someone like Faber back there running it only helps. And I think as the years go on, he's just going to get better and better. And that $8.5 million AAV in a few years is going to look like a really, really cheap deal.
Yeah, he's been great for them, mate. And I don't know if you saw that clip, Bill Guerin and him signing the contract and what he said to Brock Faber. Did you catch that?
No,
one?
I didn't see it.
It was just a really cool clip. Bill Guerin basically just said to him, I know the great thing about hockey players is that they all want to earn their contract, earn their paycheck. And he said that gets a lot of guys in trouble because they try to do more than they should, right? They try to do everything to earn their new contract. He said, just go out there and be yourself. Just do exactly what you've been doing. Don't change a thing. It was just really cool to hear, just that sort of pep talk from a guy like Bill Guerin. Our projection, Bruce, is based on a real spike in power play time on ice. So 234 power play time on ice last year, 45.8% power play share, which was really, I have to dig into that deeper. That's kind of strange. It was just 2.5 minutes, but 47 points for him last year. We've got him projected for 56 this year. And I think the majority of that is power play points. So 10 goals, 56 points, 25 power play points, 156 shots on goal, 32 penalty minutes, 66 hits, and 155 blocks.
Yeah, I think that's easily attainable for him.
My expectation is it's 4 minutes per game on the power play as opposed to 2.5.
And I think he'll get it. Well, unless they're going to push him to 30 minutes a game here, like they were playing him last season. Like if you're going to do that but then he's what, 21?
I'm just going to pull up his numbers here. Yeah.
Yeah, he's 21. So I don't even know if you played him 30 minutes a night, if it's really going to affect him too much. He came up because he was in the Fiala deal, was he not?
I believe.
From
Yeah,
LA?
he came from LA. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and he just jumped in and like, boom, he just like, wow. Like,
imagine being the LA Kings and you had Brock Faber in your, and what was the other young guy they got there?
Oh, they got Brant Clark.
Thank you, Brant Clark. That's the name of it. Yeah. So like imagine having both those guys on your defense and Drew Doughty still.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I know.
Big numbers for Brock Faber last year in terms of time on ice, like mid-20s and higher.
Yeah. He's definitely someone I'm looking at. He's not going to go early in redraft leagues. He's going to be probably middle round for a defenseman. Everyone's going to be looking for the high point defenseman early in that, so he's going to be in the middle to late rounds. Most likely. Yeah,
there's still more proven assets in terms of defensemen that you're going to pick ahead of Brock Faber. But I think in terms of line mates, deployment, all that, the sky's the limit for this guy.
If you do the 0D or the zero defense strategy, which is no defenseman before the 9th round or 10th round, he'd be someone to look at.
I am not subscribing to that theory, Bruce. I
did it last year.
I might go 0G and hero D is what I might do. I like having a solid D-core. And for me, it's usually getting 4 defensemen in the first 10 to 12 rounds.
Yeah. My first 10 rounds last year were all forwards. And then I did defense and goaltending for the last rounds.
It worked out pretty well for you. But I like more balance. I've never gone just forward heavy like that. But
my goaltending. So I did this. Obviously, I did the 0G thing, right? And it was my goaltending, and I probably should have swapped one of my defense guys. I probably should have swapped out a little earlier.
Yeah,
but it was my goal. I still can't effectively do 0G because I get attached to my freaking goaltenders, and it's like, oh, I don't really want to drop him, and then 2 games later, it's like, yeah, you dunderhead, you should have dropped him.
That's the whole point of 0G, Bruce. You got to drop those goalies, and because you don't spend the draft capital on them, you feel good about it. So,
yeah, so that's my sticking point with 0Gs. I still get too attached to my goaltenders.
Okay, well, before we jump into goaltenders,
that's why I've been the bridesmaid the past 2 years. So
yeah, All right, last defenseman here, Bowen Byram, 86% rostered in Fantrax, 33% in Yahoo, playing on the top pairing in Buffalo with Rasmus Dahlin. He posted career highs in goals with 11, points with 29, penalty minutes of 53, hits with 94, and blocks with 104 in 73 games last year between Colorado and Buffalo. As I said, most common D partner was Rasmus Dahlin, and that's an encouraging sign for him. Consistent exposure to Tage Thompson, Alex Tuck, and JJ Peterka is going to return dividends for sure. He's just got to stay healthy. That's been a real problem. We've talked about him lots on this show, Bruce, in past episodes.
Yeah.
Always an issue for him, concussion problems, all sorts of stuff. But the other thing is power play time is going to be difficult to come by. His shot rate at 3.4 shots on goal per 60 last season does leave something to be desired, and a high secondary assist percentage, all factors to be considered.
I think he's gonna be fun to watch, especially if he's gonna play with Dahlin again this year. It's gonna be fun watching these guys toss the puck back and forth to each other. Right, you got both good, solid defensemen, but both have got really good offensive instincts, and I think we're really gonna get to see what Byram can do on the offensive side this year in Buffalo, because I think they're gonna give him and Dahlin the green light to go out there and have some fun. I think they're going to. And I know we've got him projected for what here do we have him? So 16 goals, 44 points. Yeah, I think he got buried in Colorado there on the back because look at all the talent in front, right? In Buffalo, he's going to get to explore some of that talent he's got now, and I think he's going to make the most of it.
I mean, the problem he's going to have, and it was the same thing in Colorado, is he's buried behind a bona fide number one defenseman in Rasmus Dahlin on the power play.
Yeah.
And same thing, Cale Makar in Colorado. But he's shown that he can produce at even strength. Last year, 11 goals, like we said, right, in 73 games. So, I mean, I don't think it's a stretch to say he could score 16 this year. That may be a little bit optimistic, but, I mean, 16 goals, 44 points, virtually no power play points. We got 4 power play points here for him.
Yeah.
So
you do 40 points at even strength for a defenseman? That's good.
I just think if he plays,
that's almost,
if he plays with those guys, Bruce, though, that's not a shock. Would that shock anyone if he had 44 points playing top pairing minutes?
Look what Hronek did in Vancouver.
Yeah.
Like, it's definitely possible.
For sure. So I think that's a guy you want to keep an eye on later in your, if you're going 0D, Bruce.
0D. 0D.
That's a guy that you're not going to get the power play points, but you're going to get some good even strength production, I think. And 44 penalty minutes is also our projection, 134 hits and 116 blocks. So he does cover some categories.
Nice category coverage, too.
Yeah, so even strength production and category coverage, nothing to get too worked up about.
No.
Well, all right, let's move on to goaltenders. And Bruce, this is your guy again.
Yep. All the Leaf fans out there that I shit all over all season, this one's for you, boys and girls. Joseph Woll. He was my pick for when I looked at all the goaltenders and stuff of who can break out. You look at the team, you look at the opportunity in that. The only thing that's knock against Woll is, can he stay healthy? If he can stay healthy, I know they went out and got Stolarz, which is, you look at the season he had for Florida last year. They won a Stanley Cup. He is a great option there if Woll does get an injury or something like that. But if Woll can stay healthy, the crease is his. That is what I believe is the projection for him. So I don't know. I've been kind of reading Leafs goalies for the past 3 seasons now. So
you love your Leafs goaltenders. I think, Bruce, you've got more confidence in the Toronto Maple Leafs than I do. But they are a good regular season team, right? They're a good regular season team.
They're a great regular season team. They score goals. They lots of wins. So yeah, it's a no-brainer. Like that one year I did the 0G thing, and I think I got the 2 goaltenders super late in the draft, and they were great for me all season. I think Woll will be the same way. If you can get Woll and Stolarz as a tandem, which I think is probably how the season is going to start. They're not going to just throw Woll to the Wolves right out of the gate. I think they're probably going to do a 50-50 split for the first 2 games. Mm-hmm. And then, let's say the first 10, 12 games. And then after that, if Woll is feeling good, here's a little bit of leash and let's see what you can do. And
I
If
could
Woll
see
can handle
them.
it, I think.
I could see them doing like a 2-1, Bruce, like in terms of crease
Yeah.
share. Like I just think they're not quite ready to hand the reins over. They know that they've got a good young goaltender here in Joseph Woll, but that's why they brought in a more of a veteran guy like Anthony Stolarz,
Like
who,
Stolarz.
like you said, was great last year for Florida. So just on Woll, though, he had a between October 16th and February 29th, he made 16 appearances, 9-5-1 record, 2.75 goals against, 918 save percentage, a 7.73 goals saved above average. Really
Some
solid
nice
numbers. And then the Leafs went and they added some nice pieces on the back end in Chris Tanev and Oliver Ekman-Larsson. So
Chris Tanev, their future LTIR candidate. Sorry, just had to say that.
No, it's a totally fair comment, Bruce. That contract is going to age like
it's going to be
milk.
terrible.
It's going to age like milk, buddy, because it's just.
I'm pretty sure my tweet as I read that is congratulations to the Leaf, your future LTIR candidate for, because he is just one shot block away from a permanent injury.
But I think for this upcoming
season, that's why they want him, because they need players like that on defense. They lost Edmondson, who was that guy for them. He
was a poor man's Chris Tanev, I think, right? But it's just Chris Tanev defensively is going to be really good for them, really solid for them. And Oliver Ekman-Larsson is there, I think, to help on the power play if needed. He showed actually like a bit of a bounce back, a redemption tour in Florida last year, right? He looked pretty good for them.
He's not the latter years there in Arizona and in Vancouver, we kind of crapped all over him and stuff like that. The guy is still a good defenseman. Like, he's not a great defenseman, but he's still a good defenseman.
Well, he's an experienced veteran defenseman, an actual NHL defenseman, right? It's not a prospect. It's not a guy like Liljegren or like. It's just this is someone who's played a lot of games and should be able to help out a bit.
And when you watched him last year in the playoffs, you noticed him when he was out there. He was making plays. He was doing the little things right. Like, I think at this point in his career, he's just having fun. He got his Stanley Cup now.
Well, the pressure's off, right? You win a cup,
and he's not tied to that. He's not saddled with that $9 million, $8 million contract anymore. He's getting paid by 3 different teams this year, 4 different teams this year. Like,
I'm not even sure, but yeah.
He's out there to have fun and play hockey, and it showed last year because he played. I thought in the finals there against Edmonton, I thought he played amazing.
Yep. Yeah, no, he did. Just going back to Woll here quick too, Bruce, I think there's going to be a little bit of regression on the penalty kill. He had a 905 PK save percentage last year and a 956 PK save percentage the year before that. We've talked about this on the podcast before too. That generally falls in that 860 range for goaltenders. So I think we'll see a bit of a step back on the PK. And then
you never know. Chris Tanev could make some saves for him too, and you wouldn't have to worry about it.
That could be the case, but I think we'll see a bit of a step back there. However,
it's very possible, yes.
At even strength, though, he was just 907 last season, so he was kind of league average in terms of even strength save percentage last year. But in years prior, I think he was closer to like 930 on the even strength save percentage. So
if he can give the Leafs league average goaltending, that's a win for Toronto. Really, it is.
Yeah, I think he's going to provide at least like at 907 save percentage overall. I'm just looking at his advanced numbers here. Even strength 907. The year prior, it was only 7 games, a 929 save percentage, and then 4 games the year before that, a 924. So again, limited sample sizes, but I think he's going to be great for the Leafs this year. And then we've got one honorable mention in net. Probably not a big surprise to anyone. We've talked about Dustin Wolf a number of times towards the end of last year, Bruce. He was absolutely brilliant for 3 seasons in the AHL. Save percentages between 922 and 932, along with 11 shutouts. The question is that going to translate at the NHL level?
I think it will eventually. I don't know if it's going to happen right away. He's going to have to get a little better acclimated. And two, he's got a very different team. This isn't going to be a defensive stalwart in front of him. So he's going to see some rubber, this poor kid.
Well, that was my point, Bruce, is he's going to set a career high in starts, shots against, and saves this year.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a full 50-50 tandem for a while till he can get his get himself settled, and then they might, depending on how the season goes, they might give him some rope. I don't see the season going particularly well for this Calgary team, but I could be wrong. But
I'm with you, Bruce. I don't think it's going to be a great year for Calgary, but I think Calgary's recognized by trading Jacob Markstrom that Dustin Wolf is the guy for now.
He's got to be their future guy. And
well, I think he's the guy of now and the guy of the future. And I think Vladar is a good veteran backup, right? Like this, he's there just in case Dustin Wolf absolutely falls off the wagon.
Yeah. Toronto fans, sorry. Calgary fans are hoping he's the reincarnated version of Mika Kiprusoff.
Well, if he can translate the AHL results to the NHL, it looks like he could be. But it's a big if. He's still a young goaltender. It's not a great team in front of him. I'm just looking at it going, if you're not overly concerned about the save percentage or the goals against, if you're looking, okay, I need to fill my starts and shots against and saves. If you're looking at those three categories specifically, this guy could have a really good year next year.
He'll be a great, like if you're looking in your redraft team, for a third goaltender. I think he's it's a good option there. And if he's available on the waiver wire, he'll have some streaming value depending on matchup dependent, but he'll have streaming value there as well.
Depending how this goes, Bruce, he could be a 0G option that you look at halfway through the season. Maybe he goes on a run, and this is a guy you're streaming for 2, 3, 4 weeks. But
if you're in a dynasty league, this guy better be on someone's roster already. He better be there.
Yeah, I didn't look up his numbers. I'm sure they're in the 90s in terms of Fantrax numbers.
Yeah, in dynasty, he better be picked up because that's
86% for Fantrax.
Yeah, and that's a good number.
All right, so there you go, Bruce. You know what? Just over an hour, not too terrible considering the amount of time we spent talking about the offer sheets, but it was something that was on my mind, on your mind, on a lot of Oilers fans' minds. So thank you to our listeners for bearing with us as we rambled on for about 20 minutes on that subject tonight. Hopefully you found some value in the rest of the podcast and us talking about some breakout candidates for the rest of the year. Bruce, what are we talking about next week? We should maybe just touch on that quick.
That's a great question.
Potential busts. There we go. I just had to look up our notes here. Next week we're going to be looking at 2024, 2025 potential busts. I think we'll look at that just from where are you drafting those players and what is the expected result. So we'll have projections for those players, and maybe we'll try and look at some ADP information, based on early results here, or maybe just based on expectations, whether or not they're going to reach those expectations. And then we'll look at some sleepers the week after, and then we're going to start something, our top target series. So we're going to go through each division and talk about at least one player from every team, but they're going to be, I think, at later points in the draft, right? We're going to try and find some players that...
some later, because everyone's always fanning over the top players, but who are those guys you're looking for, look for in the mid to late rounds that could steal you? Like for me last year, it was Mark Stone. I picked
at the end of the draft.
He was the very last pick of the draft. I picked up Stone, and he played he played well through the whole season, right? Like for getting couldn't ask for more until, well, of course, the LTIR thing in February there. Right?
Yeah,
but still, the last pick of the draft that got me point per game plus for 3/4 of the season. You can't argue with that stuff. You can't argue with that. It's great.
Yeah, so we're gonna look at some guys, just some value picks within each division. All right, so with that, Bruce, that's it. That's the show this week. Thank you all for listening. If you have stayed with us this long and you find what we do is entertaining, educational, informative, and it's helping you reach your fantasy goals, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to this podcast. A 5-star review really helps us reach more listeners and help more fantasy managers out there. You can find us on Twitter or X at FHHacks and on Instagram at Fantasy Hockey Hacks. We're also on YouTube. We're intending to do more of that this year, Bruce. We're going to have maybe some graphics, maybe some information people actually care about, maybe even just short form content. We're still kind of sorting through that, and we'll see what we're going to do for the regular season. But for now, Twitter, Instagram, be sure to give us a follow. And we will be back next Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on how our schedules fall. We're still kind of in summer mode here, Bruce. But anyway,
definitely.
Thanks, Bruce. It was another fun episode. We will talk to you next week.
Sounds good. We'll see you then.